so lopsided?
All right, everybody. Welcome to Aquarian Anarchy. I will get our little banner here set up. We have a very special guest with us tonight. Trey Quinn, aka Black Mountain Hotep, is in the building. We can't wait for this conversation. This is something that I've been wanting to do since for a while now, and probably for a few months. And we finally get to do it. Want to remind everybody real quick: like, share, subscribe. Do all that stuff. Go to the Patreon at aquariananarchy.com. You can find the information there. Get on the patron list and throw tickets, man. So we can. Nico needs some gear in there to make his camera, fix the camera up and everything, and get the. We got a banner coming. We got your banner coming. That's going to be beautiful. We can't wait for that.
We finally are in motion with the job. So
there you go. There you go.
Starting tomorrow, bright, early, and bushy-tailed. So not complaining, just sitting here learning and taking my blessings.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. 2 shares to speed the spread. Share this if you haven't already. Send it out there, and we will definitely appreciate as much of this. You know, we want to speed the spread, man. We want to spread this podcast everywhere. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. Trey Quinn, my man, I met you through the Hotep Nation chat way back when, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something like that, and you have had quite the last, I don't know, 12, 15 months or so, something like that. So we very much appreciate you coming on, and I don't know, how's life for you now? Like how are things going now? I know it's been you had a little rough stretch in there, but hopefully things are on the right trajectory now.
I mean, life is good outside of, fighting these court cases. Life is good. My girl, she's 10 weeks pregnant some days. It's gonna be a girl. I just found out today, so I'm
congratulations, man! Oh shit!
For sure.
All right.
No, it couldn't be no better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Look, hey, look, like I always say, we have to outbreed the normies and the goofballs out there. So I'm all about it. Can't wait to see another little Hotep baby coming up in the ranks.
Right,
watch out, world.
Yeah. Hey, man, I added my 4. I got 4 out there. We're good. I got me 4 added to the pool of not stupid people. Mm-hmm. So y'all got to catch up.
Yeah. I'm trying to catch up.
So we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with our Libre stream, but I still want to emphasize, like, we're working through this is a platform that just launched with Saul and Corey, getting that thing done. We're having a little bit of an issue tonight, so we're not live streaming right there tonight, but we will get the show uploaded there. So if you want to watch a replay, please, I request that you go there and watch the replay there if you don't get a chance to see this live, or if you want to watch it back again, because they're trying to build a place where we can go, where we can actually have the freedom that we need, that YouTube really doesn't give us. And so we are working in that direction. So I see you back there.
I'm a Virgo, so
straightening out the RBG. Let's just get right into it. Yeah, I know, right? Let's just get right into it. So when I talked to you earlier today, we were talking about kind of like what I think needs to happen, why we wanted you to come on the show, is for a handful of reasons. One of them is that there's a tendency. Marcus and I are very active in libertarianism, in the Libertarian Party, and in that movement. And similar to like the Democratic Party, there's a tendency for the white libertarians, the white liberal-ish libertarians, to pretend to understand and to speak for Black people and what they want, without necessarily really asking them. And a lot of what you went through with some of the activism and stuff like that you've been doing for the last year plus. You kind of witnessed some of that, how that you get that sort of I don't know, not hijacking, but like an assumption that like I'm here to help, so what, I know how to help you without asking you what will actually be helpful. So that's one of the targets that I want to kind of direct the messaging at. The other one is white conservatives who are kind of on the other end, where they're like, oh no, we're here to help. We're here to rescue you from them. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to tell you that you're stupid for associating with them, and that we are going to point the finger at anything that goes wrong and say that's because you're part of that team over there that we don't like. So that's two of the objectives. And then the other one was, I was really excited to have you come on, because I think for someone in Nico's position who is, young, 22 years old in Chicago. And I mean, you see the stack of books behind him. He's kind of starting to work through that path that you've been on of learning about, culture, your ancestry, and like the fuckery that has gone on as you've come up and in the Black community relative to the state. And so I wanted to have him have a free forum to be able to pick your brain on what you've studied and how you've messaged and conveyed that to people, because you've had some success with that. So with that, I just want to let's get into the movement that kind of started when you saw some of the things that were starting to happen in the streets last spring and summer, and like how that kind of evolved from, or if you want to go back further than that, like if you want to start, because I think your activism kind of started well before that, or at least your study of kind of where you approached Hotepism, I guess, so to speak, how you got there.
Oh, well, yeah. So, I mean, I found Hotepism through my own cultural studies. I didn't even know that that's what it was called, but I mean, I was studying who you would be describing as Hoteps if you took them for what a Hotep actually is, rather than if you were to Google it, And in the beginning, I didn't know anything salacious about being a Hotep. All I knew was historically, I was finding out that this is where I existed. This is the vein that I existed. I listened to all of the people that I'd studied, cassettes and videos of them, read their books, and kind of just went through, listened to their students. And I found that there was a lot more to being a Hotep than the Kemetic philosophy, which is originally where you hear that word, right? There was there's an actual science to being a Black nationalist, because that's, for myself, being a Hotep and a Black nationalist are two in the same thing. For others, it's not that, that is a good thing about being a Hotep, is that you can not be one of those. You can be, an Afrocentrist. You can be a liberal or a conservative version of a Hotep. But for me, the real root of it is being a Black nationalist. So my studies got really intense right before the protest season, and I started sharing my knowledge with people online, and I wrote a book. And when I wrote the book, my goal was to just deliver all of the work that I, had went through, as well as all of the educational knowledge, so that people could pick through it on their own. So I listed all these resources of all of these books that woke me out of the grave. And in the end, I realized there was going to be more work to be done if I was doing this all online, because reaching Black people online is hard. Right. They just, to be honest, they just don't want to hear what you have to say when you start talking pro-Black. They have a lot of things to say. Everybody's on their keyboard. They Google what a Hotep is, and then they get the 8 videos of the, 8 jackasses out there who say some wild shit about women. Or, right. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. They get some nigga with an ankh on his head, running around, saying all sorts of crazy stuff, and and so it's really hard to reach Black people for real, and unless you're more centric to I guess to Pan-Africanism and to nationalism, then they tend to hear you. They are capable of differentiating you from a regular Hotep or what they perceive as a regular Hotep. They're like, oh, obviously this is not the same type of person, but it also requires on your part to be able to stop them in their tracks, with knowledge, to be able to stop them in their tracks with all these other things. So anyway, I digress. I found all of this knowledge, and I found that it was hard to reach people. And almost simultaneously, as this was happening, George Floyd was murdered. And so I came out, saw the protests evolving, and I saw Black people leading. I saw Black people speaking in Colorado, mind you, which, Black people are so in Colorado. So to see them out there talking anything close to what I was saying was inspiring. And so I stayed out there, and it evolved from there. It transformed from being about Black people, or like everyone was caught up in the moment, when it's like when you go on like a vacation or a honeymoon, there's just that one moment that trumps everything else, and that's kind of what it was like. Everybody was kind of like swept up in a feeling. I could tell, I could feel it in the air. It was, they were swept up in something. They believed they were a part of history, and in some cases, some people were, but everybody there, they wanted their place in history. I'm sure they wanted their Bernie Sanders "I walk with Dr. King" moment, and I use that reference because obviously Bernie ain't done shit for Black people since he walked with Dr. King. So they wanted that moment right there, right? They wanted that.
You could argue he might not have been doing anything, for Black people then either.
Exactly.
Doing shit for himself.
Right.
So apparently it was like co-opted from being strictly Black to including everybody. So like Bernie had every right because he was inclusive to it. So come on now.
Yeah, exactly. Got it. When your own people sell you up the river, it's a little hard to to swim back to shore. So for me, it was seeing people out there ready to be taught, I guess, ready to hear. Everybody's hearts are open. Everybody's minds are open. There's a lot of energy in the atmosphere, and people are sharing that energy. You go home and you feel everybody at the end of the day. You feel the weight of everyone else's energy on you. And so that's the perfect time to really hit people if they're capable of listening, if they're capable of understanding you. And so I stayed out there, and I ended up marching with a lot of good people, and then leading marches myself, and then leading marches with other people, and it just snowballed from there, from that point.
Yeah, well, so like when you interviewed with Hotep Jesus a couple of weeks ago, the thing that jumped out to me was that you gave a very different picture in so many different ways. It was like the movement itself that you were part of was a prism, and that the light that went through it, it depended on which direction you saw, like what color the light was that came out of that. And there were so many different perspectives, and there were different light sources too, right? So like you didn't just have different perceptions of what was going on because of some of the stuff that was being influenced, but you also had these different influences. So like I want to hear more about like what you saw that was like the pure part of like what you're talking about, that openness to learn and the people who were genuinely there for the right reasons versus, and then we can get into some of the stuff that happened later that was not so pure in intention.
Well, I think this really is credence to all who don't exist in the conservative world, because I typically, before all of this, would talk to conservatives because they were easier to get through to. And when I was out there, the people that ended up being the most pure and ready to be taught were people who in all other communities are castigated for their ideologies, right? I'm talking about the LGBTQ community, right? The rainbow community. They were out there in force, and there was a contingent of them some who were unhoused, some who weren't, who were all about Black people to a fault. To, you know, these people would do next to dangerous things, put their lives on the line genuinely for you. And the only way you can tell if they're genuine is having a conversation with them.
Right.
And I was talking to some of these people, and I was like, wow, the fact that you could even pick up on me, let alone speak for me the same way that I'm speaking, rather than try to make this about you, which is what the Black community is used to. You know, we get a good movement, and that's one of the first groups that come around and takes it from a Black perspective to a gender perspective, right?
Right.
So they were out there in force. You know, obviously the Black people that I came across, there was, you know, with the exception of a handful, the rest were on code. And they were ready to be taught to. I would say that you know, the white anarchists were definitely not. They didn't want anything to do with the way that we were talking, but there were some small pockets of people who considered themselves true anarchists who were absolutely there to learn. And I mean, through all of these, what ended up happening was, you know, some communists, socialists, people in the Rainbow Squad, you know, people in all these other communities, a few of them in there were Hotep in their own right, were, you know, woken in their own right. You know, you had a Hispanic girl who talked about not a Hispanic girl, an Asian girl. She talked about model minority. She was one of our friends. She got up on the mic on city council, and she was just spitting the model minority stuff, like telling people this is crap, that this is what it is, and not saying, oh, this is something that's been put on us as to make herself a victim, but saying this is something we participate in and it's wrong. And, you know, we had his Hispanic girl, she got up there and she was doing the same thing, talking about anti-Blackness in the Hispanic community, which when you're Black and you say that, they try to relegate you to the realm of racist, but when you're Hispanic and say that, obviously they accept it. And so her saying that was really important for me. So, you know, I think the true minds that I found kind of existed everywhere. You know, there were just little pockets. You really had to talk to them. To get to the root.
I want to interject real quick. One of the things, first of all, I want to thank you for saying the real anarchist, because, you know,
I noticed that too. I was like, I heard that, right, people?
Right. I want to say, first of all, thank you for that, because a real anarchist is not Antifa. A real anarchist is not somebody trying to hurt nobody. They're just trying to live ethically. But
I'll come to learn too.
Right.
Sure,
and
exactly.
But one of the things, and that what you just said is exactly what my point was going to be. How you can tell that, for instance, the three of us aren't trying to glam on to what you're talking about and make it our own. Because truthfully, I found Hoteps through Chad, which seems weird, but that's the truth. And but I didn't go, oh, I can use this. No, I went, oh, shit, these are a group of people that are freedom fighters that I can learn from. You know, my background is, you know, Murray Rothbard, Lysander Spooner, anarchists, you know. And when I found I've been reading Malcolm X for a long time, but looking at diversifying that, you know, and looking into some of these other personalities, these people should have been recognized for the leaders that they were. And of course, the state has put them down. But my point is that you've learned from anarchists, and we're anarchists learning from Hoteps, because that's how an exchange works, is when you both are working together, even though you may have differences here and there, moving towards a similar goal. So for me, I want to kind of hear more, and I watched the Hotep Jesus video as well. Excuse me. But I'm getting choked out.
Coke is not a sponsor of the show, by the way.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, fuck Coke.
Right.
Oh, put that shit away, man. Pay for that.
Right. So anyway, you had talked about the invasion of the different groups to co-opt what was going on. It reminded me a lot of COINTELPRO, and it reminded me a lot of what they did to the Black Panthers. And I'd like you to get into how that happened.
So I saw it. I knew that it was going to happen before I even set foot out there. I have the least trafficked video on my less trafficked YouTube was me saying they're going to steal the movement. Black people, get out there. They're going to steal this from you. And if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then these next things are going to happen to you, right? That was literally my thought process. And I went out there, and I didn't know truly the depths to which people will join to co-op, allow co-opting to happen, or the rhetoric that was used to do it. I had studied enough Black history to know that co-opting exists, right? But when it happens firsthand, it's different than when you read it in a book. When Malcolm says, or when Khalid says, these people did this to our community, right? When they say that this is what happens, other people can pick that apart and say, well, the truth is blank and the truth is blank and all these truths are your fault. If you actually go out there, you're going to recognize that these men were telling more than just a blank truth. These men were telling the coldest truth you could ever find. I went out there, and I remember I would speak my piece up on the microphone, and people would cheer, and people were there. And then I would look out into the crowd, and I would see on the edges of the crowd, people in red shirts, or little groups here, little groups there, and they're in their little circles talking to each other. You don't really know what's happening in those circles until you penetrate those circles. And I am not someone like I like confrontation of a verbal sense. I like to debate. I like to debate everybody. And so during these protest times, I would just walk around and just pick people, listen to what they're saying. And if I disagreed with a single scintilla of what you were saying, it's on. I'm going to go in until I can prove that whatever it is you're spitting from a weak background, right?
Right.
And as I was doing this, I was meeting people who were leading larger marches, and I met a white gentleman and a group of it was a mixed race group, but it was mostly white people, and they were pulling the strings on a whole Black man while he was trying to do things for Black people. Him and a bunch of other Black men, and behind the scenes they were pulling the strings. And they don't tell you they're pulling the strings. What happens is that they think that you're capable of leading, and then they open themselves up for you to find out that they pull strings. They come up to you, they talk to you, and they ask you to lead a march and use a specific type of rhetoric, or they ask you to show up at an event that is for their cause, right? They ask you for these things when they see that you're capable of moving people. And I saw that a lot. I saw, so the socialists really took over completely. PSL, the group PSL, they stole the show. I was there firsthand on the ground when it happened. There was a group called We Are Love Denver, and they were torn down because people believed that they were working with the police, and rightfully so. They marched with the police. They had the commissioner or whatever, the police chief, talking on their platform at one point. And from the outside perspective, it's easy to see that. From the inside perspective, I believe that those Black men were used by police and by the white people in their group who had police contacts, who said, well, this is how we should do this, and this is how we should do that. These men were not pulling those strings. But anyway, this was one of their marches, and it was a huge march. They were going up and down Denver, and we got to the bottom of the Capitol. It was nighttime, and I ride a skateboard, so I like to ride in the front of all the marches, and it really gives me a chance to see the atmosphere, right? And so I started doing this in the beginning. And so I'm up at the front. We get up to the Capitol. I get up on the stairs, and I hear them starting to do speeches. These brothers are starting to do speeches, and everybody's kneeling. And so I go down to the light, and I stand by, and I listen. I never kneel because I believe that kneeling is not going to save me or liberate me. So if you want me to kneel, or asking me to kneel is to propose to a woman, it is not going to be because I think this kneeling is going to help my people. That's not how this works. And so I would stand.
No, in fact, it's usually the opposite. It's usually bending the knee is like an act of submission.
No. An act of submission is capitulating to my demands and giving things to my community. That's an act of submission. Anything else is short, right?
Right.
So I was sitting up in front of this group listening to these brothers speak, and somebody came up and they're like, hey, half of the march was stolen. And I didn't know PSL was a group yet. I didn't know that socialists were really like thick yet. I had come across a few, and I had spit some facts to a few of how their socialism doesn't help Black people. But at the end of the day, right, I didn't see a lot. And so this was the first time like I had really seen them on the scene. And they were like, yeah, they led this march up to this police station. So the Black man who was leading, he was like, I need some strong brothers to come and help me. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like me and 5 other brothers who, 3 of which are really close to me now. And we all volunteered. We volunteered. For me, it wasn't that them protesting the police was wrong. It was that when you disrupt a mass movement, instead of change the ideology or narrative or rhetoric of a mass movement for the good of the people, when you disrupt it instead because you believe that they're leading improperly, what you do is you create too many factions. You create a sense of that factionalism destroys a movement. It doesn't allow people to work together because now they're broken up. At one point in time, everyone's together. They're one big blob, and you can change the consistency of that if you're good enough. But if you break it up because you don't like the consistency, then now you have less than what you started with. And so for me, that's what the point was going to stop this march. To stop this was for. And so we go up, and they're in front of the police station, and I see these red shirts, and it's a bunch of white people, and there's 2 Black women up there, and 1 Black man on the ground. And the Black woman I ended up speaking to a great length, and she was woke. She was real woke until she started spitting mad socialist. Then all of a sudden she wasn't woke to me no more. Then she was another one in the bush. And so I got up there. We tried to break up this protest, and this brother, he got on the mic and he was like, y'all don't understand. I'm a Black man trying to do things, right? And so what I saw someone who was incapable of doing what he had undertaken fully, right? He needed some help. But what I also saw was someone who was genuine about actually trying to help people. He was on a truck crying in front of hundreds of white people with a peppering of Black people, trying to beg them to follow him because he believes he can help his people. That's what I saw. Everybody else can say whatever they want to say. That's what I saw. And so I stuck around to communicate with these brothers specifically. And so that was the first co-opting of a march I'd ever seen. They had taken the tail end of, it had to be, we were stretching blocks. Just put it this way. We were stretching blocks. It was so far that when the tail broke, you couldn't see the tail break. And they had already been at the police station when the march had come all the way back, all these beautiful things. And so that was the first co-opting of a march of a situation that I'd seen. And I was really on it about socialists. I was like, anytime a socialist comes up to me and says anything, the first thing I'm going to attack is their socialism before I attack Black liberation, because they think that those things are synonymous and they're not. And so this kept happening. More and more groups kept popping up, would try to throw little marches or throw little events, but no one was really biting because as long as Black organizers were out there, they wanted to go there, right? Fast forward to after I got arrested and got back out, after some other leaders got arrested, what ended up happening was you saw every march being led by a white person or a white communist group. What you started seeing was less BLM flags. And again, we all know about BLM. For me, I call it the Black Liberation Movement, not Black Lives Matter, because you're not going to take that from me. You don't have the right to take words from me as a Black man, especially when those words were created for myself. You don't have the right. And so I don't care. So, but yeah, there was, it went from BLM flags and Pan-African flags and this and that to big red communist flags. And I steadily lost interest in coming out, but I kept coming out. I wanted to see these interactions, and more, it was class, and less race. It was, they were amplify and support melanated voices or BIPOC voices, right? But when a BIPOC voice or when a Black voice, let me get that right, when a Black voice would stand up and say something, they had an issue. They started having problems with Black liberation being the tone of the protest. They had started a group called the it's called the General Assembly, and the General Assembly was where all of these groups would kind of sit down, coalesce, and talk about their issues in the protest movement. And so me and a bunch of other Black organizers and speakers went there, and we would get up and we would say our piece, and that night online, we would be trashed on Reddit by all of these white anarchists, all of these white socialists. And so, I mean, they were calling us Nazis, they were calling us misogynists, they were calling us, queerphobic or homophobic. They were calling us everything under the book that you have heard online. We were getting it just for standing up speaking. It got to a point where I became like the figurehead of their hatred. And so there was one specific event where a brother of mine, two brothers, they got up and they spoke, right? They got up and they spoke. And that night on Reddit, they trashed their speeches, but called them me. They were like, what's the deal with Trey and this? And it was them talking, but it was me. And it was essentially, the antithesis of all Black people look alike to them. This is all black people look alike. Obviously, we started a trend where we would all of us would just call ourselves Trey, because they all called me that. And so for a good couple of weeks, we would come out, and whenever we would get up to speak, someone else who would get up, they'd be like, yes, I'm Goofy Trey, or I'm Smart Trey, or whatever. And but it was like that. It was like that.
Yeah.
That's how much, and it got way deeper than that. They went through my tweets, retroactively went through my tweets for no reason but to just take me down. And it was a white woman and her group of white women, who now, by the way, calls herself the Protest Mom. She went on this campaign to tell people I was an FBI agent. She went on this campaign. First, she told people I didn't have charges. Then she told people if I did have charges, they weren't that bad. Then she told people I had charges because I was an agent and really they needed to take me in. She had all of these things to say about me. She still has not given me the humanity of speaking to me as face to face. Because one of the things, again, that I came to notice was that, and it sounds so anti-socialist, right? Because it's only socialists that I'm coming up against when I'm having these problems. Right. It's only socialists that I'm coming up against when I'm having these problems. But I mean, it got way too far. It got way too far. And me being a Hotep started getting attacked, because up until this point, they would listen to me speak. They would hear me say I'm a Hotep. They would hear me say I'm a Hotep. I'm a Black nationalist. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I'm this, that, and I would say I'm all of these things, right? Because historically, there's so many things that the diaspora can call themselves, and I would do that because that's who I am. And they were eating it up and eating it up and eating it up until the program didn't fit socialism and communism, so much so that my Hotepism was attacked. So then I became an anti-Semite. Then they went on Hotep Jesus as a page on the Hotep Nation page to find the article that said Hoteps are the alt-right for Black people, right? They didn't and keep in mind, and when I say this, I'm talking about the specific ones who don't understand. These idiots did not come to think to ask me what this was, or ask me what I am, or what Hotep means. They didn't think at any point in time to understand the context of that article that they tried to conflate me with, to conflate us all with alt-rightism, right? We were saying that in the Black community, they treat Hoteps like the pariahs because we are the nationalists of the community. So therefore, like the alt-right is the nationalists of the white community, we are the nationalists of that community, right? They don't understand that. They couldn't gather those distinctions. It was disgusting. So they came at my Hotepism, and that's when I found the real ones in the groups, because I personally took it upon myself to speak to those who may be offended by some of the things that I had said. I said Planned Parenthood should be abolished. I said that the LGBTQ community and our community don't have the same problems. I said those things, and I had to go to people and tell them what I really mean by these, because I knew that
why you said it, right?
Yeah, because a lot of the people who marched with me, who had my back, ended up being queer people, and so for them, it was a really big blow, right? It was a really big blow. But then also, side note, the fact that I came out to help liberate Black people, and I can't even get a percentage of Black people that outweighs the percentage of others is a problem in itself. So I went out to apologize to these people, tell them like, listen, if you were hurt by how I said these things, I'm sorry. Let me explain these things to you. You know, I'm a Black man and I'm from a Black community, and I was raised by Black women, and I respect and idolize Black women and pray to them. And from my perspective, what's happened to Black women because of Planned Parenthood is disgusting. So I personally felt this way, right? I understand what the institution does for other people. So I'll never go on a campaign to end that institution, because I know personally from the people in my circle that that institution does things that help them that no other institution will, right? That is understandable, especially for the unhoused who cannot get services. They need Planned Parenthood. Unfortunately, they need it. But what we don't need is Planned Parenthood marketing themselves to the Black community, especially since they were created to destroy the Black community in the beginning. We don't need that. And so that's what I meant, right? I had to explain that. You know, I had to explain that just because two people, you know, if you take a Black person and a Black queer person and they both get brutalized, their Blackness is still the common factor in their brutalization. I know this for a fact. Out here, the white queer community does way better than the Black queer community, and they will tell you that themselves. And so these are things where our problems are not the same. If you're Black first, then there's an issue in whatever system you're dealing with, you know, when it comes to this type of atmosphere.
Yeah, you can be anything. You can be anything but Black first.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much the rules are like, hey, wait a second. We're all in this together. I don't know why you have to make it all about being Black, but you know, like what the fuck? Like, why does it get to be about all these other things, but we can't like we can't stand up for ourselves? What the fuck?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, to me, the I guess cojones on these people to when it is a supposed to be a Black inspired movement, you know, as a white man who I see color. You are not a white man. You have a different background than I do. I see color. But if I'm coming out to help you, I'm not dealing with my issues. I'm not going to talk about anarchy, and I'm not going to try to say, hey, become a voluntarist, do this stuff. No, I'm out to help you. My point to be there is to help the Black community because I feel a kinship with many of the people in the Black community, or I think that you've been wronged or whatever that would be. So to me, the balls on these people to try to make it about their issue and try to make it about them when the focus was, my understanding, at least throughout this year, has been Black people are being brutalized by the police and it needs to fucking stop. And that's what that should have been about. It should not have been about, I don't give a damn if somebody's gay, straight, they like deer. I don't give a damn if it's consensual. But that's not what the moment is about. The moment was about Black people, and they should have been empowered, and instead,
especially Black men too. That's the other part of it, is that somehow Black men became like a soapbox to stand on so that all these other things could be talked about. What were you saying, Nico?
It sucks to be like in the position because it's like I have like a lot of my cousins my age are like all a part of like the other side that just don't align with Hotep. So it's like it's difficult when I know I want to speak up about a certain matter, but they just all step on me or, you know, get feisty. And I'm like, there's no point. There's no point. And even if I try and attempt to out-educate them, they're in college. So, you know, they'll use their little denial tricks that they've been enforced and infringed upon. So, you know, they're real crafty with instituting that. I'll say that. Their deflection tactics are real good.
I'm telling you right now, I had to deal with a lot of that out here on the ground, and because you had, I mean, it wasn't just like, you know, woke Black nationally Black people who came out. We are in Colorado, and as I said to Hotep is, you know, Hotep Jesus, is that when you're a minority, the majority shapes your thinking. It's inherent. And so there was a lot of liberal thinking in the Black community. When I would have conversations with them, sometimes the breakdown would come to philosophy and one of the things, because I've had that issue, right? I've had the issue of trying to reach a Black person who is adverse, who doesn't like Hotepism or anything that could be considered that, right? They're like, oh, this pro-Black stuff. Let me tell you about, Thomas Sowell. Let me tell you about MLK, right? They got they have their way to debate you. They have a way to debate you. The thing is that history just is so clear about who the true inspirers were. History is so clear about who actually made it possible for some of the people that these other Black people idolized, that made it possible for them to teach. When they go and they use their philosophies of rhetoric, and I have to come against that, the first thing I attack is, who taught your teacher? Who taught the people who inspire you? Let me explain to you what it is that inspired them to even say the things that they can say. And then let me explain to you the systems in the white world that have turned your teacher into a buck dancer, that have turned you, because that's what it is. Listen, I love Cornel West, but I don't love Cornel West right now, right? I don't like his rhetoric right now. But I loved his rhetoric back then, right? You have to be able to take their knowledge and spit it to them first, tell them what they know first, and then tell them why what they know isn't that it's wrong, it's that it's ineffective for our community. You have to actually hit them at their knowledge base first. You have to do what's called steel manning, not straw manning, steel manning. When you debate with somebody, you speak whatever they had to tell you, you do that first. A good example is 8 Mile. When Eminem battled Papa Doc, he steel manned Papa Doc, right? He was like, yeah, let me tell you about me first, right? Because that's what Papa Doc was going to say.
Yeah, I'll shit talk myself for this whole thing, and then I'll just leave you silent. You don't have anything to say. What you can say now? I just built up your whole argument for you, and now I'm going to dismantle it.
Exactly. So you steel man their opinion, because what they're going to do is straw man you first. And straw manning, when it comes to Black nationalism, it's easy to defeat that if you know your history. If you know your Black history, your African history, then they cannot straw man you, because every straw man argument is based on a theological lie. It's based on an absence of evidence. It's based on a type of bias that is inherent to the writer. It's based on any one of these things. And so you attack that first. Then they have nothing to stand on. Then the conversation will break down. You will get insulted possibly first, but if you make it past that, then you educate them. You give them the option. What you do is first you tell them whatever they perceive about you and your Hotepism or your nationalism or this. Let's first break down. Do you understand what nationalism is? Do you know what that means? I had to explain. It's actually to a white person who understood it, because they had heard me say I was a Black nationalist, and they were like, I just wanted to talk to you because I from what I know about nationalism is, like white nationalism and this and that. And so I had to sit down with them and express to them what it means to be a Black nationalist. White nationalism is just America. That's just what this is.
Statism.
Black nationalism is having something within that society for real, having a structure, looking at the buildings in the skyline and knowing your community has stake in some of that the same way that other communities have. That's what nationalism is. It's not about superiority over the white race. It's not about separation from the white race. It's about communication with your people, right? They go, well, I don't believe in separatism. I don't want to be a separatist or, this or that. You tell them it is not about not working with your white peer. It's about working with your Black peer. Because that's what we don't do.
Right. So, what is it? It's funny you say that, because that's like, I'm starting to hear more often, why do you think other people are able to come over here and build up off it's because of their nationality. In America, they want to keep you Black and white. And, POC, they give you these little labels instead of giving you a nationality so you can build up off yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, and I started to realize, just within, if you think about it, like a family reunion, or even your small, your little family, I have 2 boys, and the oldest one's 15. The youngest one's about to be 12. Well, they do the yard work now. like they're old enough to where it's like, why would I, if I'm out of town and I'm traveling and all that stuff and I can't do it myself, why would I pay somebody else, give them the money to come do this stuff when I can just have one of my boys do it and pay them, keep that money in the family, let them build their own wealth, let them learn how to do a trade, how to do something that has value. And then if they want to go around the neighborhood and do that with some other families, now they've learned the skill. That's right. And I'm okay with them learning on my yard because they're my boys, so I'm going to let them guinea pig my yard to a certain degree because I can kind of clean up after them if they don't edge right or whatever, but that's kind of what it boils down to, is that this isn't about like hatred or anything like that. This is just about what's wrong with kind of keeping stuff in the family when you can, so that you can build yourself from power. I was watching and listening to Dave Smith and Hotep Jesus today, and they were talking about like the power dynamic, and that part of this is just about like allowing yourself and allowing people to build, and for it to be okay to talk about. I put a tweet out a while back with a poll. I was like, white conservatives only. What part of this upsets you more? Black power. Is it black or is it power? Which one of them? And so then it was just like, and then I had a third option. The third option was neither. Black power, so it was like if you have a problem with that, then you don't really understand what it means to do what I'm doing with my boys, which is just, it's not because I hate other people from other families, or because I hate the people who drive around with their trucks with the little phone number on the side saying that they do yard work or whatever. It's because I love my boys and I want them to learn, and I want to keep that money here. And the same thing with like my daughter. She's about to go to college, and I'm looking at like, I want to buy a little condo that's close to campus because the other two kids are going to have to go. They're going to be doing that stuff. And so like, instead of renting an apartment, why don't I just buy one and then have them live there, keep that money in the family, and then I'll rent it to somebody else after they're done going to school. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thinking that way instead of the other way. And that's why whenever you start doing what you're doing, it's threatening to people, because it's like, whoa, wait a second. Competition's coming. Let's nip that shit in the bud.
That's right. Well, I think sometimes what it comes down to, is that people, they rest on their own understanding of things so much that it makes it harder for them to question their surroundings, to question their own philosophies. When someone says black power and someone's afraid of that statement, it's the word power that they're afraid of, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not because of what power actually means. It's because their interpretation of power is based off of those who've had power over them, right? So now they see all forms of power is a form that will disaffect them, okay? Except
they think power. They think the opposite of power is kindness.
Exactly.
Like, no, the opposite of power is helplessness.
Exactly. Now, when you're in a hurt position, right, and you go to stand up, what do you say? You say, "I feel empowered. I feel empowered." So when we say black power, we're saying black empowerment, right? Yeah. We're saying stand up from a position of weakness to a position of power, not a position of control over another. And always, whenever someone has a problem with someone who speaks militaristically, when someone who speaks nationalistically, it always comes down to the root, to how they interpret the words that person says. When you speak to people, if you interpret what they say based on your understanding rather than what the words mean, you'll never ever get anywhere, because by attacking what they mean, it allows for the person to then describe to you if that's what they actually meant, because now they get to figure out, is that what I mean? Are these the words I meant to use? When you try to describe that, when you interpret it that way. And it allows for you also to not seem biased in your interpretation. And it breaks down the communication to a level where you're both on the same plane. That's severely lacking in the protest community.
That same playing field is what I was going to say earlier. Never discount that there is a fear of lack of losing their own power. If you're empowered, white people have been in charge for forever, for a long fucking time, and they don't want to lose that power, and they damn sure don't want to share it. So they don't want an even playing field. They don't want your community handling itself and somebody else's community handling themselves. That's the beauty. What you're talking about is what we were preaching for 3 years in the Kokesh campaign. It is about localization, about returning power to the people so that they can make their own decisions, so that they can, determine where their life goes. Like Chad was talking about, he wants to use his kids to do his lawn. And
I don't want to use them, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah. But right?
No, I mean, no, seriously. Like, I want them to be able to raise money so they can buy shit that they want, and I don't have to. It's not like, Daddy, can I have the? Like, no, did you save up money? How many yards have you cut? That kind of shit. Because that's how that's how the world fucking works, man. You gotta produce to be able to go get shit, So
that's right. And that's another thing is that another bad interpretation is the word capital or money in these communities, right? Because when I'm out there and I'm talking, my whole perspective is we're trying to attack the money. Black people, we need the funds, the money. It's about our economics, right? All of these things. We need access to capital. And you say the words, Black people need access to capital. And almost guaranteed there'll be like 5 white anarchists around you who are going to be like, oh, well, capitalism is bad, Listen, motherfucker, your community has shit. That's why capitalism is bad for you.
Right.
For me, right, when I go to Baltimore, right, go to West Baltimore, right, go to my grandma's neighborhood, and you tell them people living in row houses that capitalism is bad when they're all trying to get a business so that they can fix their fucking neighborhood. Tell me that shit. Go there and say that shit. If you can't do that, which is the issue, they can't do that. Then shut the fuck up. Understand what your politics mean to you. You know what I'm saying? Black people can't practice socialism because we ain't got nothing to share with our own community, and ain't no community gonna share with us. Come on. That's not how it works.
When we talk about socialism, though, let's be clear, because you were talking earlier. Let's be clear. With socialism, every socialist is a disguised dictator. All they're trying, and that's Mises, all they're trying to do is they're trying to get power over you. This isn't about capital. A socialist appreciates having his fucking big mansion at the Stalin at the Stalin Moscow retreat. They love having that shit. There isn't a socialist that wants to give their iPhone up. Not a one of them. So when we talk about socialism and these idiot socialists, let's be clear. They don't really dislike money. They don't like you having money.
That's what I say. I've said that. I've said that. I've said that. And I mean, for me, I am all politics are bad, right? All politics are bad. And for me, the issue was everybody knows how conservatism for them, or how the Republican establishment is bad, right? Everybody knows. It's too clear now. When it comes to socialism, or it comes to the Democratic Party, when it comes to left ideology in totality, no one attacks those issues because they've always played themselves off as the people's champ. They speak for the other, right? They speak for the little guy. They just don't speak for Black people. This is something that people have not come to understand until Joe Biden got in office, for Christ's sake. Like, literally, we came out and we say these things, and they hate that we say these things. And the first thing that they can do to stop you from exposing them is conflate you with the right, or conflate you with this or with that. Whatever they can conflate you with to protect from the truth you just said. When I stand up on the mic and I say that when I was locked up, Hispanics would join with white supremacists in gang wars against Black people, I didn't say that as a joke. I said that because I've seen it with my physical eyes while having a DOC sentence. And when you say that on the mic, you say that on the podium, these people hate that. They hate that. They hate the fact that you exposed anti-Blackness in our community. So you need someone to either who represents them to say it for you, right? Or be able to just break all of these things down faster than they can have a biased thought. So sometimes I ended up getting to the point where it was like a history lesson, then a fact check, then a gut check, and then, like I had to get up there and break it down for them first, right? And then work my way there. I was really blessed to have people in other communities who were ready to speak on my behalf, or on the behalf of Black people from their perspective, and say the things I was trying to say. Because if it wasn't for them, then I would have been completely canceled in this environment, because no one would have listened to me. It took women to get up there. It took people in the queer community to get up there, because I marched with these people. So it took them getting up there and saying, no, he's got a pointer. This is how we feel. It took a lot of that. And also
the equivalent of like the white man in a lab coat coming up there and saying, no, he's right. He's right.
Yeah. They needed a white cosign. They needed a white cosign.
Right.
What were you saying, Nico?
Your YouTube videos, you posted one up on your YouTube. I digested your whole discography, and I thought we were gonna have you a couple weeks ago, so I was preparing.
Nico got the calendar. We were talking about you, but we didn't. We didn't tell him that we had scheduled it for 2 weeks later, and so he just dove in and started digging. So go ahead, Nico. What were you?
Yeah,
I want you to open up.
I was seeing if were those did you post some of your videos up on YouTube? I remember seeing you stand up having a speech. I don't remember entire context of the video, but were these the same rallies?
Yeah, some of these were the same.
Okay.
There's I think I've got a wash of clips that I've been a part of. There was a live streamer who followed us for a really long time. His name's Cut the Plastic. And if you actually go on his live streams, you got to go way down into past June, right? June.
Right. Yeah, June, July, somewhere in there, huh?
To see, like June.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go down to June and just start there, a lot of the night marches he follows were our night marches, and you get to see also another thing that that I had to work myself with, and that you get to see what it's like to be in an environment where first everybody's wild, then you have to train these wild people to essentially be a unit and take care of each other properly. And so you see a lot of moments where things are just out of hand, and I'm just running around trying to keep control with a few people who are also trying to do the same thing. You see a lot of that in those videos. But most of the stuff I put on my YouTube, those were, me going at Brandon Tatum and going at the conservative establishment. Because before all of this, before I started going hard on these socialists, I was railing these conservatives.
Right.
So,
rightly so.
Yeah. Right. So, you have to go there. I think the last thing that I posted though was me talking about my charges.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think we agree on. Not that there's much that we disagree on, because honestly, I haven't heard a damn thing. But one of the things that we can agree on for sure is that much of this nonsense that we're facing is basically brought on by either the left or the right trying to divide the already divided Black community even farther down, trying to get it divided and keep us. We're not supposed to talk, because if we start talking, then, oh shit, we got problems, because I'm a white dude and I'm in middle America and I can't be talking to a Black guy. Oh no, I can't do that. Got to keep us divided, because the moment we start locking arms and walking forward in strength, they know that they're lost, and they know that the Black community is a massive piece of that. And the proof is easy to see. You don't hear about COINTELPRO going after some other damn group. They did, but you don't hear about it. You hear about them going after the Black community. You don't hear about them having to introduce crack into inner city Black communities. You don't hear that about the Jewish community. You don't hear that about a bunch of rednecks down the road. You don't hear that. And the reason for that is because they are scared to death of a strong Black man, and they will put that shit down in a heartbeat. So that tells you something. That tells you if the state is saying these people are an enemy and are a threat to me, that means that I'm an anarchist. So that means that
the good
the
kind.
Black community, right, the good kind, the real kind. But I'm an anarchist. So that means that if the state sees the Black community as its enemy, which it does, and it does all the time, it enslaves it constantly. If it sees the Black community as an enemy, that means that I have an ally that I can push forward with and fight back against this murder and rape and pillaging of the entire world, which is caused by statism. So where I see this coming together is how can I help bring, I'm a white dude. How can I help bring because when you described Black nationalism, I'm like, okay, that's localization. That's not what I would define as nationalism. That's just caring about your community. How can I, as a white man, not get in your way and still lift you up?
The same, and I've been asked this a bunch of times, and I always say, educate, and then share that education. Lift up your fellow white person, right? Because one of the things that slows the movement down itself is Black people having to take time to teach a white person. I've spent hours, literal hours, on the ground until the sun's gone down and I'm getting pulled at by my shirt to leave. I've spent hours trying to educate people who should be educating themselves so that when they come see me, it's I feel you. What can I do next? Or where do I fit in? Or not even having to ask me where they fit in because they found their place. My co-defendant from my old case when I had gotten locked up, he's in Washington right now. He's a white dude, and he called me during this whole protest thing, and without my prompting, he was like, "So, have you read this book by Chancellor Williams?" And I was like, "Is it called The Destruction of Black Civilization?" He's like, "Yeah." He was like, "I can't believe this book isn't in schools." And I was like, yeah. I mean, he's like, it makes sense, but man, so much of the stuff, if I'd have just known this or that, and our conversation flowed like water after that. And that's really what it is that, that the lack of education on the part of the white community and the lack of taking whatever education they do get from us and sharing it creates a blockage in our stream, and we cannot flow freely anymore because we are now trying to move this rock and that rock out of the way. Some of these, rocks are dense ass boulders who are just like, but I don't see color, and it's all of this, and we have to break these things down. When you just educate your actual community, then it takes away from our job as educators for you. We're too busy trying to educate our own people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I should just be able to get up on whatever rostrum or whatever mic or whatever stand and talk Black only, right? I should just only be able to do that, and everyone in the audience know exactly why I'm doing it, right? They know exactly why I'm doing it. Or if I say Black and Indigenous people, they know why I, as a Black nationalist, would do that, because Black nationalism is the only freedom movement in Black society that has truly championed with the Indigenous community, because we see our nationalism and their nationalism is inherent in order for a society to be greater than what we perceive it to be, which is not great. And so you have to break all of these barriers down to do these, to really pass on this kind of message to people, because it's hard. It's hard. So I say get a good book list, right? Get a good book list and break down that book list, and then talk to your fellow Black, scholar or whoever who's versed on this topic. Pick their brain, because a lot of times you're going to, white people, they've read a lot of Kwame Ture, they've read a lot of Huey P. Newton, right? They love these brothers, right? And they love the socialism of certain Black movers, right? They don't understand why they were socialists at that time. They don't understand how other Black leaders and scholars saw their socialism. What they definitely don't understand is that all of these Black leaders participated in a form of Pan-Africanism, and the root of Pan-Africanism is not socialism or any kind of ism. It is just Pan-Africanism. That's the only ism it is, and it is the destruction of white systems, which is conservatism and socialism and this and that. It's the breakdown of all those structures. And of statism. It's the breakdown of that. And so passing that on is something that a white person can do. They can learn from us and then teach another white person. When they hear some wild shit in their, when you're at Kinko's or wherever the hell you work, and you hear you hear Jeff say some wild shit across the way, you need to go over and check the shit out of Jeff. But you don't got to go over there and check him like a white liberal and go, "You're a fucking racist." Oh my God. No, you go over there and you show this man that you are now his teacher for a moment in time. And by doing that, you gain a form of respect from this person. And then it allows you to convey your points better. And then you end up learning something as well. You learn how to communicate with other people. You never stop being a student, and you show them that by speaking to them on a human level. They expect you to, everybody expects you to receive them in the wrong way, or the way that they've been ill received before. People rarely expect to be received the way they should be. They rarely expect. Yeah, and so you show that first.
What's the oldest studies that or what's the first studies that you've gotten into that really opened your eyes to really Hotep and going back and to the ancestors and whatnot, and understanding the bunny hole? What was your first book down the bunny hole?
Oh, well, my first book down the bunny hole was Chancellor Williams, was The Destruction of Black Civilization. I was in Florida. I was painting, and as a painter, you got a lot of time. You spend a lot of time on your knees, crawling through the house, standing, and this and that. So I just throw on books, man. I just throw on books and listen and play them over and over. And I played The Destruction of Black Civilization 3 times over so that I could soak it up. And when I was done that book, I ordered it. And then after ordering that book, I went I got a book. It wasn't by a Black person. It was Toby Wilkinson's Rise and Fall of Ancient Egypt, right? And I wanted to pair that book with The Destruction of Black Civilization. I wanted to understand where, in fact, his dissertation of African people in Kemet and where they, moved to. I wanted to see if that matched up. And then I went and got a Bible. Then I went and got a Torah. Then I went and got it snowballed. I went to Du Bois next, then Booker T, then Shahrazad, so that I could understand how to talk to a Black woman. I went deep. Mali history, Nigerian history. I just kept going deeper and deeper because my goal was, because I was starting to not believe in anything. I had just finished writing 20 pages of my disbelief in anything at all, literally. I was before all of this, I was walking towards Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins. I had read their books first, Lawrence Krauss, right? I was right before all of this Black history hit me, I was deep in astrophysics. I was deep in AI. I was only reading and studying that. And I was physically and emotionally and spiritually dying. I was losing faith in everything. And then I found African culture, and I found roots to our culture, that
spirituality within that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I found the Kemetic science, because what Hotepism is not a religion, or what Kemetism is not a religion. It's a science. It is a physical science. Everything else, your spirituality, that's on you. That's on you to find your spiritual base. But Kemetic philosophy teaches you how to have a vessel capable.
It's science. I be trying to explain that. I told my aunt, my religion, if you ever want to call it anything, is nature. That's just how I see it. And it's based off of science, and science include, and I talked to her about energies and things of that nature. And I'm like, okay, what you think you believe, you not throw that out the window, because that's just poor rhetoric.
That's right.
And then I start to go into how I read every day at least a little segment from the philosophies of The Destruction of Black, the European Empire and things of that nature. and take little excerpts and just like remember them and spit it out and just try and get better philosophy, because I suck at reading. I'm not gonna lie, but I've been doing a little bit better. So, but it's just the building of the repertoire of getting the different information and like understanding more and more. Science is the reflection of nature, and that's just how the ecosystem should just basically roll. And like you can't just change it. Like nature is not cool with that. So, and that I've been more so researching of nature instead of like as Black history I have, but it's gone back to like since I'm Haitian, I have gone into like been in Africa. I have to like go deeper into that. I have most definitely gotten into
You read about Toussaint Louverture?
Indians. What happened?
You read about Toussaint Louverture?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, man, it's just so much culture I have to jump into, and it's like I'm at a standstill because I have to learn certain things of like my older culture, but I don't know where to start. It's just so much, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
So how the specific transition, and this could probably help, that actually led me to not necessarily Hotepism, but African spirituality, the science of Kemetism and all these other things, was Herodotus. So I had been listening to Herodotus histories. I listened to the whole entire book because I couldn't afford to buy the book at the time. And I listened to a few other European historians, and they were describing Israelites as Ethiopians and Hebrews as Ethiopians. And these are obviously premier historians in the European community, correct? So I was like, I was really intrigued because during this time I was also on my Kendrick kick. And and I'm one of those people, I listen to old music. And so I was listening to the Damn album, way late.
A lot of people.
You know what I'm saying? way late. And I was listening, and he was like, I'm an Israelite, I'm not Black no more, right? And so for me, I was like, all right, I need to really understand these all these things that tie these things together, right? And so then I found Chancellor Williams, and then I found all these others. John Henry Clark opened my eyes to his studies, opened my eyes to African history in the form of its transition to Black history. Because one of the things that you come to find, like when you study Sheikh Anta Diop, it's heavy, thick African Egyptian history. The sightings are it's getting through 10 pages is a milestone. And so, and it's not tying you to Black America. It's teaching you African systems, right? Anything shape, right? And so going into John Henry Clark, I was able to understand how that philosophy breaks to us. What does that mean, right? Because one of the things that you will come across is we're not Egyptian, right? Because not every African lived in Egypt, right? Here's the thing. First of all, it wasn't Egypt before people were calling it Egypt, and Kemet was a lot larger in the minds of African people than it is in the minds of those who drew lines on a map. Okay, migrations took history and took science and religion, which is why so many other spiritual systems mirror the Egyptian spiritual system. It's not that they're mirroring Egypt, it's that they're mirroring Kemet, which is older than Egypt. It is the root of that. And so getting to that right there allows you to kind of open up the waters for people. And so my transition was the European philosophies into that, because European scholars were talking about their interactions with Black culture, this type of culture, and I needed to know where that culture existed. And the only way to find that is to dive in. And I got blown up. I don't know if you've ever heard Marcus Aurelius. He has a book called The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, right? It's a really great book. I've listened to it. I've read it. It's a great book. Marcus Aurelius, we have an equivalent for that in the African world. It's called Ptah Hotep, and he's older than Marcus Aurelius. And the instructions, the teachings of Ptah Hotep are solid in the eyes of what African spiritual Kemetic philosophy is and how it transcends, and it also shows you how others take from it for their own philosophies. But you have to you really have to pair your history with your religion, because that is a history book, and there's a lot in that will tell you that it's not justifying the existence of the Most High. What it's doing is justifying the existence of places and time. And once you read your history, study your war history. For me, I couldn't stop soaking up war history. It got to the point where I was thirsting online for it. I found Dan Carlin, and Dan Carlin was a great teacher of history as far as the way that he expressed it, right? So I would listen and be captivated by Dan Carlin, and I heard him teaching the story of not Sumerians, Persians, and he was going back to the story of 300 before that, right? And historically and religiously, those things tie to Black people directly. There are moments in those histories that are affected because of the African continent and what we've done to progress society. So really it is a thirst for these things together that allows you to make connections, to debate others, to share your philosophy, because you got to be able to tie it all together, because there's a lot of contradictions in all of our histories, and you have to be able to express those contradictions, tell what they mean. You just have to have an arsenal. I have always been telling people, and I will never stop telling people, if you don't know your history, you have half a sword, because you're only fighting with the hilt. You're not doing anything else effective, because you don't have a base. They steal from Black people based on history. You know what I'm saying? Based on the history we don't know, they take from us.
Right.
We're Black people now because of a history that they know. Right? We're Black people now.
I want to add to the discussion too. One of the things that I find interesting about this is because I don't know if you know anything about this, but I have an interesting spirituality myself, and it is vastly based. I mean, just enormously based on the African continent. And because I am massively influenced not only by the Egyptian pantheon and the Egyptian belief systems and all of those kinds of things, but I'm also massively influenced by Haitian voodoo, by Santeria, and by those kinds of spiritualities.
People made Santeria.
Do what?
I said my people made Santeria.
Right, exactly. Right. I studying the Yoruba and the people. Anyway, everyone in West Africa has massively impacted me. But what I have found is, because before I started looking into African religion, I had looked into Hermeticism. I had looked into, Kabbalah and all of those kinds of things. And what I found for myself, and to be clear, my wife, her primary spiritual vision comes from Sumeria. She's very interested in the Babylonians, the Sumerians, and all of them. So you start there, but when Egypt really comes into its own historically, that's the hub. And what happens with religion is Egypt had it all. They understood how all of this shit works. They understood the organization that becomes Kabbalah, that becomes Western religion. When you start talking about Christianity and Islam and those religions and the metaphysical practices of the West, that all, for the most part, some of it comes from India as well, but most of Western religion comes from Egypt. So a lot of it goes off into the Middle East and up into Europe, and you can follow it with languages too, because languages and religion follow the same path. But if you go the other way and you go deep into Africa, it does the same shit. It's just that white people aren't in charge. So the same shit, the development and the splitting up of the religion that the Egyptians understood, gets divided in two, and it gets kind of co-opted up into Europe and into Asia. But the strong, deep spiritual beliefs get carried. Now, sometimes that just gets pounded on a drum, and some of the deeper significance gets lost, and they don't know why there's this pattern or whatever. But that follows itself into voodoo, into Santeria, into Kimbanda, into Umbanda, into Candomblé, into all of these different African-centric religions that make it to today, including what is currently practiced in Benin. So these same religions, just to back up what you're saying, I've been studying this crap since I was like 12 years old, and I'm 46. So I've been studying it for a little while. That's what I've been looking at is that religious expansion. So what I'm trying to say is, you're right. This Egyptian influence or Kemetic influence on the world is never given the credit that it should have. And those people knew so much more than we do religiously.
Yeah, we're just rediscovering some shit that people knew millennia ago.
For sure.
And acting like we fucking found some shit out. It's like,
right. And you can see the perversion of this, because talking about, like you were talking about the Greek historians and stuff that you've studied, like you can see it in language. When we talk about the Egyptian deities, for instance, we say the god of information or the god of writing, god of magic, it's Thoth. That if you ask anybody, they're going to say Thoth. It's the ibis-headed god. That was pronounced Tahuti. Yes, it is Thoth, but that is Tahuti. And people just lose that context. And I think that one of the things that I see in you particularly, I'm inspired a bit, sorry, that I see in you particularly is the ability to funnel information. You know, I've done some of the things that you're talking about that we should do. I'm looking deeper and will continue to look deeper. I asked Chad a few days ago, actually, because like I said earlier, I've studied Malcolm and I've looked at some of the just peripheral Black nationalist stuff. And so I started studying, I recently, he made me a list, and I started looking at the different leaders that are influencing the Hotep nation, because I've become, influenced by Hoteps massively, because I've become friends with Hotep Jesus and things like that. And so I started reading, for instance, Kwame Ture today, and oh my God, I get what you're saying about the socialist influence and all of that stuff, but there is no purer words about war than that dude spits out. So I'm going, right. I'm going to keep diving, and I'm going to keep digging. And it is people like you that inspire that. And I want to just continue to work together and build a better world and a freer world together.
First of all, I appreciate that. And I mean, you're right. It is important that be the goal. Honestly, in my opinion, I think that one of the things that becomes hard for people is that they don't know where history really starts. When you're speaking politically, people think that politics and that starts here in America in the time of Donald Trump or right after Obama, right? Everyone's scope of politics is Obama long. They've forgotten about everything before that. So, when you're speaking to them, there's that. When you're talking to them,
unless it's the 94 crime bill, we can remember that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, right. And so, when you're talking about history with them, people stop their history at American history, especially Black people. We had that whole ADOS movement, and as far as I'm concerned, I am not a descendant of a slave. I'm a descendant of people who are descendants of greater than slaves. I'm a descendant of all these things. And even my slave ancestors are not, they by themselves on their own right were free people. It doesn't mean, just because they were in slavery, they were free people. I'm a descendant of free people. You took free people. And so, it's like you have to break that down, right? Speaking to someone about history here in America, they stop at slavery, right? So you got to go past that, which means you got to study past that as well. To what you're talking about as far as to separate this, but as far as Egypt being the hub, right? The only reason all of these things happen is because Egypt adopts polytheism. Because before Menes united Kemet, before all of that, they were praying to one being. and it was an androgynous being to them. It was primarily a female being to them, but in many cultures, it was a genderless being. And then polytheism takes hold through war, because you have people who don't represent your society taking over your society. Half black people who are by miscegenation are put in place to destroy your culture, right? And then you develop these cults and these sects, and all of a sudden the world is confused, and now you have all of these religions. And all of these religions exist, and all of their etymological roots, all of their theological roots, all of their roots, period, are in the African continent. They're in the black world. And so, again, it's when you describe or discuss any of these things to people, sometimes you have to recognize where their limitations are, and also yours as well, because, I know sometimes when I start going hard, I realize my nationalist perspective on black culture may not fit with some black people who are thriving just fine, not practicing nationalism, right? So there's a lot of integrationalists out there who do just fine. And how do I talk to them? I have to be able to break down even my understanding, change who I am, meet them on their realm. The same way you see like an old black leader, when he meets a Muslim, he says assalamu alaikum, or when he meets a Hotep, he says Hotep. When he meets a Jewish person, he goes shalom. All these persons. He doesn't do these things to parrot for them to make them feel better. He does these things to recognize what he doesn't understand, recognize what he or she doesn't know. To start off at a really an honest root, because that's what we're all looking for when we're having the honest point.
What you got, Nico?
Real quick, I want to make one real quick analogy. What's funny is what you're talking about meeting them with their greeting or what have you, reminds me of something that the spirit Shingo, who's a Santeria Orisha, had spoken to us. He said, when you meet somebody, don't try to speak to them from your perspective. Speak to them from their perspective. Help them from where they need help, not from yours. If they're a Christian, approach them as a Christian. If they're a Muslim, approach them as a Muslim. If they're a pagan, approach them as a pagan, because they're not looking to convert. They're looking to become a better person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So sorry, Nico.
Go ahead, Nico.
No, I wasn't gonna do anything.
Oh, I thought you were leaning in. You were leaning in, so I thought you were.
No. I was just real focused on what he was breaking down.
Yeah. Well, to that point that you were talking about, Marcus, about so that I started reading. There's one of the folks here in Baton Rouge that in our little libertarian group that he recommended that we read this book together as kind of like a semi book clubbish sort of thing. And so I've been driving a lot this week, so I decided to audible it and listen to it. It's called The Righteous Mind, and it's actually really, I don't know if any of y'all have read it. It's really, really good. It's this psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, I think is his name. But it's about it really, really goes into some tremendous detail about how people view their viewpoint, and how hard it is for people to just use reason. And that actually, it's not even this. It's not a sign of weakness or anything like that. They have really, really intelligent people who are still, they're using confirmation bias. They did a study with infants 6 months and younger, where they took these puppets, and they had one puppet and it's trying to get somewhere, and so there's another puppet that tries to help it up, and then there's another puppet that when he tries to get up to where he's going, this puppet will beat on him and knock him down. And the 6 month olds are they determine that if they stare at it longer, it's because it doesn't jive with what they expect. And so even at that young age, there's a certain we vibe with kindness, and we're confused by meanness because it doesn't fit with. So there's a morality that's ingrained in us that is not just socially taught, because you're too young at that point to have been taught what meanness and niceness is or anything like that. And so then it goes into they did some of these other studies where they had people that were where they're talking about if you do something and there's no consequences, like it's not gonna, no one's gonna know or anything like that. Like they had one where it was like incest, where it's like this, like a brother and a sister go on a trip together, and like nobody knows, that they're together, and they decide that they're just gonna like, explore this one time, and so, but they're gonna, like she's on birth control and he wears a condom, and like nobody will find out, and they just kind of keep it a secret to themselves. Is it wrong? And then people start going through like, well, it's wrong because they're, and you get into all the like the real stuff about like why incest is like, because there could be birth defects and things like that, and there's all these other things. But then you start getting into like why people really think, and they're just like, I don't know. There's just something that bothers me about it. I can't explain it, but they can't like rationalize their way out of it. But it's still like is this hard held belief, but we can't seem to figure out like through reasoning why it's there. And so the point that they were making with it was how when someone really believes something, how hard it is to do anything other than to just kind of meet them there and then start to kind of hold their hand and go on a journey with them and find, whatever the truth is together. Because if you go at it from the standpoint of like, no, listen, there's nothing wrong with that, you're not going to get anywhere with them, because even if they can't rationalize why it's wrong, they think it's wrong. or if it's something that's right, it's right. It's a really good book. I'm doing a really shitty job of describing like what's really impacted me so far on it, but because I can't, the incest thing really stuck out to me, because I was like, whoa, that's weird. That's a weird place to go with that.
Thought experiment.
Huh?
The incest thing is a thought experiment.
Yeah, it is. No, it absolutely is. And he goes into like the trolley experiment and or the trolley dilemma, and goes through that stuff too. But it's really good, really interesting, because from the standpoint of like how to persuade people and how to get through to people, and also how to like learn and how to understand yourself and like what your biases are that you're bringing to a situation, and how to kind of like really be open-minded. It's really thought provoking. It's a really good read or listen in my case.
I have something that really helped me communicate with people is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's Thich Nhat Hanh practices a form of meditation. It's called mindful meditation. Okay. And I actually found this through Sam Harris, because he's big on meditation. Here's the thing: when you become an atheist, you got to find something to believe in, and this jackass thinks that meditating is not him practicing spirituality. Well, he's like, well, you just mindfully meditating. No, dog. But anyway, I found Thich Nhat Hanh through him, and Thich Nhat Hanh is a type of Buddhism called mindful meditation for people who are trying to meditate while doing things, right? While you're doing the dishes or you're doing mundane tasks. And after reading that work, I found another of his called The Art of Communication. And my biggest takeaway from this book was that when you go to communicate with someone, sometimes it's not a bias that you have to overcome because they are dogmatic in their beliefs. It's a bias that you have to overcome because they are hurt or suffering. There is an element that triggers that bias. There is a suffering inherently in every person, so that when you go to talk to them, that suffering dictates a portion of the way they speak. When you come talk to me and I start going black this and black that, you can tell a part of my suffering as a black person speaks through me. When I talk to you, right? And when I speak to someone else of another culture or another society, I have to recognize what it is that they suffer from. And the purpose of this being a fact, the purpose of understanding these things is so that when you go and you have these confrontations with these diametrically opposed opinions, when you have these talks with these people, you have to be able to again, like I said before, you have to be able to bring their humanity to the table.
Right.
And recognizing them and recognizing their suffering in whatever way it is a big benefit. And it puts you, I don't want to say it puts you at a, it doesn't give you an advantage, but it puts you at a position that they are receptive to a fault to hear what you have to say, because they see that you're speaking to their heart and not their sensibilities. And for translating this whole thing to people, it all comes down to, like, what is this person going through? I never really thought about stuff like that.
Relating to them, basically.
Say what?
Relating to them, and basically having an understanding of their perception. Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I always do when it comes to like dogmatic in situations. I'm like, look, I know you going through it, and I know this, that, and that, but this is what you also have to see. And not just saying, but this is what you also have to see. It's also like trying to have their views kind of line up with your own in a sense. Right. It's playing that proper wordplay instead of, just like stepping on their dreams and spitting on it and just being like, that's what that was. And you have to try and like coax them over, because, being rash with it don't get you nowhere.
And that used to be me.
Well, like they have the little that cartoon, the meme or whatever, where it's like, this is equality and this is equity, and it's like the boxes standing up looking over the fence at the baseball game or whatever. Well, this is kind of like, it's like, oh man, can you see the moon? And it's like, no, I can't see it from like my vantage point or whatever. This is like, just like, well, let me help you look from this vantage point, instead of it being like, well, you're fucking wrong, why are you looking at it from over there? Like, that's not how you would, if you really wanted to help someone see the moon because it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, you wouldn't tell them you're an asshole for trying to look at the moon from where you're standing. No, you would say, oh, look, come over here. Oh, you can't get over here? Well, let me find a way to help you get over here so you can see it from this, because if you see it from over here, God, it's gorgeous. Like, or you take a picture of it and send it to him or whatever, but you wouldn't do it like take the picture and then send it to him with like, you stupid ass, if you'd be over here, you'd be seeing this. No, like that's not how you do it. You're like, oh my God, I wish you were here. This is so beautiful. You know what I mean? Like we have to think in those kinds of terms with a lot of this stuff. And I'll be the first to admit, well, maybe I wouldn't be the first to admit. My wife would probably be the first one to tell you that I don't always do this well. That sometimes every now and then I can be a little bit of that asshole when I'm trying to convey my point of view to her especially. But
I had to learn how to speak out here, because I realized I wasn't, I'm not in an all black city, and I'm not talking to just all black people. I had to tailor my speech. I had to figure out a way to say my nationalistic opinions, while not hurting the sensibilities of the sensitive, because not everybody's ready, to have you meet their suffering. Some of them just don't give a shit, don't give a shit. One of the things that really benefited me was my spiritual understanding of how I see people spiritually. I would often tell people that I see everyone as a divine being, not just black people. Just because I may say us black people are the children of the sun, that doesn't mean that you chat are not filled with light. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that thing. That's not what that means. What that means is that, my people are the progenitors of your light-filled people as well. And that's what I'm trying to say. And really trying to express this stuff is in these ways was the biggest pitfall, and also I would say booster for me, because I was also trying to learn, Nico, like yourself, I had a stack of books and I had a stack of book lists, on my YouTube. And I was like, how do I even translate this to people? You know what I'm saying? At first I came out there and I was like, no, let me tell you something, brother. Let me tell you this. And I realized like everybody's not ready for that. Not everybody's ready for that, right?
Yeah.
Some brothers don't care about black stuff. They want to hear about economics, right? So you make economics a black opinion. You got to come up to them and you got to show them where the rubber meets the road for our people and the economic base that we're looking for, right? You have to do that. Some brothers, they got religion on their side, right? They believe in this. So you got to hit them with verses. You know what I'm saying? You gotta inspire them spiritually. You know, I think that the great orators of our past, studying them and how they spoke to people, study those who they call demagogues, because those are the ones who were really hitting a nerve with people. You know, when you look at like your like an MLK speech, for instance, a Martin Luther King speech hits everybody's soul, right? Their feelers. Everyone's like, I have a dream too, right? Nothing can make a person crawl in their seat because the truth hurts so much than listening to a Khalid Muhammad speech or listening to post or pre-Mecca Malcolm, you know, when he was on real nationalist tip. That right there means more. When it angers people to a sense, it's because you're hitting a nerve. It's because you're getting somewhere with it. You have to study these people to learn how to pass that education on to people. You have to know what their methods were, you know, why they were so theatrical, or why the word is meant, what the word is meant. You know, Neely Fuller, he said we need to start making it white supremacy when we talk about these things, right? And so when you get up there and you speak, if you're like colonialism and, you know, the powers that be, all these white people are gonna tear you down when they find out you're a nationalist, because you're not speaking like a nationalist. You have to get up there and you have to go, white supremacy is where I'm attacking. This system here specifically, spell the words out because they make people uncomfortable. And that right there distinguishes you from your average teacher, your average speaker. That's how you reach Black people who are ready to hear you. Because here's a thing I found was sometimes if you just say a little bit, right? And then you just give a random Black person in the crowd a mic, after you've spoken in this way, they will sound exactly like you. They will sound exactly like Sato or Malcolm when they stand up. I swear. I've listened to Black people speak like liberals and socialists, and then I watch them as we'd sit up there and we'd speech about Black nationalism in so many words, right? And then we give them the mic, and they would get up there and they'd be like, you know, I used to think this, but fuck that shit. Fuck this shit. They go hard. They go hard. And that is that's a gift right there. That is blessed to you. Like when you're given the ability to give someone else the ability to spit that kind of fire, you have no idea what that feels like. To, you know, there have been marches where we would come, like we had a friend, and he would go and he would pick Black people who were just standing on the road as we marched past him, ask them what they didn't like about the protests, what it is they wanted to see, and then be like, well, this is what we're doing. We're leading this one. You want to speak too? And then they come up and they'd be like, yeah, man, his sister wants to say something. His brother wants to say something. And then all of a sudden, you've given the reins for the whole protest to this Black person right there. Because they have what it takes to lead these people, to say these things. They're just waiting for they're waiting for a fucking soapbox. You know what I mean? Like, they're waiting for a moment to say something. And that's like that.
It's like that scene in. Oh yeah, go ahead, Dika. Sorry.
How do you feel about Black History Month as a whole?
Yeah.
We just took that turn. I had to pull it. So how do you feel about it?
So last Black History Month, I didn't participate because I was speaking Black history the whole year and getting lambasted and castigated by all these liberals and conservatives online, right? And then Black History Month rolled around, and half of these people's timelines was a Malcolm quote, or, you know, they don't even choose the revolutionary that aligns with their dumbass opinion. They choose the revolutionary that aligns with mine. You know what I'm saying? So, like, people would be like, y'all, Hotep is crazy out here, and then 3 posts later, there'll be Marcus Garvey on the screen. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, last Black History Month, I was like, I'm tweeting about dumb shit this whole time, which I did. This time around, I figure I'll just stay on the same page. Typically, in general, I feel like you cannot, and I tweeted this a few days ago because I saw someone speaking about Black History Month, and I had the same feeling that I had when you asked this question. Is Black history doesn't start when white America recognizes Black history.
I retweeted that shit. I retweeted that shit.
It doesn't start there. Black history starts at the conception of humankind. It starts at the meeting place between the growth of our intelligent mind and our spiritual mind. It starts at the meeting place of these things. It doesn't start anywhere else. No one can tell me when my Black History Month or day starts. When I walk outside and I look at a building that is inspired by Roman architecture, that is African architecture that they've stolen that from. When I pass by a Freemason building, that's my symbol that they're stealing on that building. You know, when I look at that dollar, when I look at anything in this world, any system in this world, I can trace it back to somewhere where we have been stolen from in order for that to exist. So every day is Black history. As long as I live and breathe, as long as we live and breathe, every day is Black history, period. That's like month. We got a whole, we got 365 plus.
Man, I'm coming up. Every time I get the chance, I'm saying I'm creating a new holiday. All the holidays they have, fuck them. We're creating new ones. Like, you might as well not reinvent, but, you know, start writing over stuff that they've made, because it's like I've held my tongue. I dislike the idea of Black History Month. It makes us look like fools. Matter of fact, it's the coldest day. It's the coldest month. So imagine if Black people had Black History Month in August or something like that. It would be a mess, because Black people would be organizing, Black people would be getting their stuff together, and a Black Wall Street would probably pop up every 3 months. So it's like the fact they give you the shortest and the coldest month kind of says something. It speaks volume to why they don't want you to get together, because they're now recognizing Juneteenth. Like, Juneteenth wasn't in our history since whenever it was. So it's like the pandering into Black people just now, and like the lack of intelligence, not intelligence, but the ignorance on our behalf is astonishing when you have the internet.
Right. That's right. When you have the tools in front of you, this is why I saw, like, sometimes I have no sympathy when I come up to someone who speaks from a platform of what I perceive to be ignorance. It could be their miseducation, it could be their misunderstanding, it could be any of these things, right? If you can get on your phone, here's the thing. I can walk down the street and ask everybody what's going on with Jeff Bezos, and everyone will know that he resigned. I can walk down the road and ask everyone about some dumb Lizzo video or some bullshit. Because when we wake up in the morning, we grab our phone and we look at some bullshit, okay? So there should be no reason why, when I tell a Black person, why have you not studied this? They go, I don't have the time, or my parents didn't tell you. There's no fucking excuse. That was my excuse, and I was the last generation to have that excuse, because we just got the internet. There was that source did not exist when I found, when the internet came to me, when flip phones and cell phones came to me, that shit was not there. So it was the onus was on my parents to teach me, on my community to teach me. And so I have the ability to say, to say these things. Other people, they don't have that ability now. Younger generation doesn't have the right to say that they don't know. Go fucking find out. You don't have the right to say you don't have the time. You know what I'm saying? You don't
got time for all kind of other bullshit.
If you look at their phone, and they'll have that what's the activity, you can see how long they've been on social media. You could have spent that. Even if you don't have the attention span to read it, you can most definitely listen to audiobooks. You can most definitely be watching videos on YouTube. There's like, I know people sit down and like watch hours and hours and hours and play hours and hours and hours. And especially in this lockdown period, people should be coming out geniuses, no cap, no lie. People should be legit coming out geniuses and creating businesses. If you did not take this time to build anything, I'm sorry, you just did yourself the biggest dissatisfaction. And human history, and you see that they keep flip-flopping, and now you got to wear 2 masks because it's cute. No, like, y'all just don't pay attention. Y'all genuinely just don't pay attention, and everybody needs a thump on the forehead and a V8 because, like, that's how I'm coming. Like, that's how I'm coming.
That's right. I felt the same way when, you know, when the virus hit. I was like, all right, listen, every day I already do shit. I'm gonna do double the shit. I'm going to do double. I was like, I'm gonna work out twice as hard. I'm gonna read twice as much. I'm gonna create something. I created my painting business during the pandemic. I was like, this is what I need to do. I invested in myself. I started studying and learning, and then I realized somebody got to teach these dumbass niggas because no one is gonna listen to their their own conscience. No one's gonna be like, man, I should stop watching reruns of fucking Supernatural and get off of my ass. Like, no one's gonna do that shit on their own.
For us, this is what we did.
This is what we did. We started a podcast together, and we did. There's like 5 other things. I got like at this point, I'm like, I got too many balls in the air.
That's why I'm grateful for the Hotep community, for Hotep Jesus doing what he did, because by making it, it wasn't that you couldn't say you were Hotep, right? You just didn't have nobody to back you up when you said I'm Hotep, or when you said I'm black, whatever, right? I use the word Hotep to describe it all, because if you're a black nationalist, you're a Hotep, or if you're any of these things, right? In the realm of black liberation, you are a Hotep, by right. And so I was, no one was cool with this. No one backs you up. And then he came out. Not only did he make it a trendy thing, but then he was, I was like listening to his audience, and I was like, all right, yeah, he's kind of like pandering to more of the conservative crowd a little bit, and the MAGA crowd. I understand that. And then he would drop a truth bomb of black history on these white folks. And I would be like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we need. We need people who do these things right here.
Right.
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have the platform that I had. I called myself Black Conservative before Hotep online, because I thought. You
said Black Conservative, you said?
My first name was Black Conservative.
Oh,
and,
wow. Okay.
And for my I thought my ideology was conservatism in its right. And so I really like got on, and I went hard on Democrats, and I didn't say anything about MAGA because I was like, the conservatives will kick me out. You know what I'm saying? which is what happened.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
I started talking to Felicia Killings and listening to Sonny and all them, and I was like, man, they really spit some fire. And I was like, but there is one thing that is real specific about how they spit that I spit, and it's the black talk. And I was like, you remove that conservatism, and there's still the black talk. There's still what we need, right? Conservatism doesn't mean that I can't say reparations is a must for me, right? Conservatism doesn't require that. Blackness requires that in a sense. Like conservatism doesn't require me as a black person to talk about the systems that prisons have enacted on us by releasing what they tell us is more black people, by releasing nonviolence when really it's violence they should be releasing, right? Conservatism doesn't teach you that shit. Blackness will teach you that shit. And we were all doing that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not a black conservative, because I wouldn't even vote for none of these niggas. I obviously is something else. Then I was like, I obviously am a Hotep, and then it spiraled down from there, man. I tell you what, if I had these teachings when I was younger, where I would be, who knows? And at the same 33.
33? Master building years, yes, sir.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The year of the fictional Christ I am. So
right.
The teacher, the grand teacher. Yeah.
That's right. That's really what it is.
Don't come after my Jesus like that, damn it.
That's really what it is. It's the year of the grand teacher.
I'm not chopping throats.
I'm talking
Hey, but for real, like if my parents had shared these philosophies with me, but then at the same time, I went to prison. I I live in a state that was run by racist gangs. I've had a multitude of interactions with these people. I got to go to college out here. I got to do all of these things because I didn't know anything about Black people. You know what I'm saying? I went to prison, went to the Moorish Science Temple, and then went to the Sweat Lodge for my last 4.5 years and stayed at the Sweat Lodge. So I had an ability that I only respect now then to travel in these different worlds. You know, when I study John Henrik Clarke or any of these others, they traveled the world. They have traveled the world, whether it be physically or at home. They've traveled the world. They've understood things from not just them. And by doing that, I've been able to develop a way to speak all Black without being torn down so easily. I've been able to develop a way to speak all Black and be able to relate to a white person. Because when I speak to a white person, especially a white conservative, I can make them say Black. I can make them preach Black power in the end of our conversation, because I know where my systems and their systems meet and why they should pair me and champion me. And teaching them that is one of the things. Like being able to walk that, I guess I am okay with not being taught as a child, because if I wasn't, the experience that I've gained would not have done me any fucking good. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, everything happens for a reason. We are where we are at this moment in time for a reason. Like we've got work to do. But yeah, I think you're right, because there's some of that stuff too where I've even had some of those thoughts about, like, you know, some of the stuff that I wish I had done or stuck to a little bit more when I was in high school, because then my college life would have been different. And I was like, yeah, but then I might not have met my wife, you know, and we, you know what I mean? We might not have the family that we have. And so there's all this stuff that, like, I think all of these things align, and I think it's about, it's like watching plants grow or something like that. Like some of those vines and branches kind of intertwine together, and then they can create this beautiful little, like, I don't know, like a canopy or something like that in a forest, that if they didn't grow and meet at the time that they met, it wouldn't have happened that way. Like if they had run into each other way down here, you wouldn't have a canopy. Instead, you'd have like this blockage in the path, you know? Yeah. So like some of that stuff is just about, we come into contact with each other, and we meet the people, we meet the movements, we come across knowledge at the time that we're meant to do so. And it's about building from there. So no, it's a beautiful thing. And I understand what you mean, though. Like there's a sense of like regret that, like, damn, I could have accomplished so much more if I had known this shit earlier, you know. But at the same time, it's like, you know, who knows? We might have fumbled it and fucked it up and gone in a different direction.
This was your time. It was your time now.
Exactly. Yep.
It was your time now to learn. I mean, I took being Hotep to its spiritual root and its physical root at the end of the day. And when I stepped out here into this protest environment, I said to myself, after being out, I'm doing what a Hotep is supposed to do. I am helping bring peace. I'm helping bring education. I'm helping uplift. I am doing the work of a Hotep. I can't stop. I can't stop. You know, when it comes to my studying and learning, I ascribe to being a Hotep because of Amen Hotep's words. You know, a wise man doubteth often, and that is a big deal. A fool is obstinate and knows not anything but his own understanding, right? Those words mean something to me. A wise man, I was told those words in prison by a guy. Oh, wow. And I remembered it forever. And I didn't even know who it came from or what it meant. I thought Noble Drew Ali made it up. And, you know, come to find out it's centuries and centuries and centuries old. And the meaning of those words. And so always I would doubt my understanding. Always I would question everything about myself and what I knew to be true and what I championed. I questioned it every day. To this day, I question even my nationalism, because if I don't question it, then I will consider myself infallible and then I'll fail, right? I need to be questioned at all times in order to progress and move forward. And being a Hotep means that. It means questioning. And it also means loving your people for real, like actually caring for your people. So, I mean, you know, just to put a bow on all of that in particular, you know, just if I did not have Hotepism, if I did not have this foundation, Pan-Africanism, when I came out, I would have failed. I would have failed. I would have ended up socialist because they would have molded my own mind because I didn't know what the fuck I would have believed in. I would have been able to been taken away. And so really it was going out there with that. Having a spirituality is important when you're trying to pass your education to people, because they need to see the faith that you have in what you spit. You don't have to say that I don't pray to John Henry Clark, but my spirituality, the faith that I have, my spiritual base allows me to preach John Henry Clark.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And that's the purpose. If you don't have that, then you're going to be more like a Jordan Peterson. Like, you're going to inspire people, but you're not going to inspire the people you want to. You're going to inspire some weird ass atheist alt-right niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where you're going to go. Without the spirit.
What you said, it was interesting. Like I think about like questioning and doubting, not in a negative way, but in like I don't know everything, and I'm not gonna be so haughty, so arrogant as to think I know everything. It's like you're painting a painting or you're sculpting, and what you have to do is you have to step back and you have to look at it and say, okay, is this the painting I'm trying to paint? Is this the figure that I'm trying to sculpt? And as you do that, you step away and you're like, oh wait, no, this is not this. This is, you know, there's an imperfection here, or there's something that I need to work on here. This needs a little polish, whatever the case may be. I need to shade this green in a little bit, you know, whatever the case. It's that type of like reevaluation, stepping back and examining almost as a third party, looking at yourself and saying, okay, who am I really fulfilling what I think I'm meant to be here for and to fulfill? Because if you're not doing that, if you're not constantly like reevaluating, and that's how I ended up here too. Like, look, it's not a small feat for me and Marcus, two white dudes, to be, you know, sitting here having this conversation and for it to be about Pan-Africanism and Hotep and all this stuff. But the way we got there was because we have continued to like, I don't know fucking everything. I used to think I did. And then, you know, I think as you get, it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, you know, like as you get older and you get further along, you learn more, the more you realize, holy shit, like I'm like 1/1,000,000,000% of what I need to know. And I used to think I knew 100% of what I needed to know. And now I realize I don't know shit. So let me listen to some people who really have their heart in the right place and who are pointing in the direction that I think I need to be going, and that's how all this sort of stuff kind of happens. So I really appreciate that perspective, because that's how I think we all should be,
for sure. And I want to throw this quote out, and then we probably should start wrapping up. It's been about 2 hours, but I want to throw this quote out to you. It's Aristotle. He said, "Be a free thinker and don't accept everything you hear as truth. Be critical and evaluate what you believe in." One of the things that, again, and this happens just in about every one of our shows, is at the end of the day, we have all been on a very similar path. We've moved in similar fashions, because that's the way the activist mind or the person who believes in freedom's mind moves. You know, we start off, you talked about this earlier, by getting mad and getting angry and getting empowered. And once you do that, once you break through that anger and find compassion, and you find education, and you find peace and love and all of those things, you got to get pissed off first, you know, but once you break through it and you get to that place, we all wind up in a very similar place if you're true to who you are. And you're a Hotep. I'm probably not. I'm a white dude. I'm definitely Hotep adjacent. And for me, I don't care. I really like the term that we have come up with for our people, and that's anarch. And it doesn't carry the negative connotation that anarchist often carries. And it's actually a more legitimate, truthful description of all four of us. And that is, a arc is a ruler. An is no. I have no master. I have no ruler. I rule myself. I own myself. I am free.
That's good. No, that's I like that all the way through, all the way through, for real. That's a good Aristotle quote too. I think I got a whole quote book of and he's in there as some of my favorites. I was thinking, Nico, I would tell you, I was gonna ask, what is your favorite opposing opinion or opposing subject from which you believe?
I like debating in religion because it was probably one of my biggest triggering points. So when it comes to like spirituality and religion, and then religion likes to tie into politics, so I like to go against the grain on that, but more so spiritual things and spiritual natures. I'm more of a spiritual individual, so when it would come to it, it's like understanding Christianity. And like when I like woke up to like Hotepism and things of that nature, I was super opposed it. I was like, fuck the Bible, fuck everything. And then as I got more mature with my understanding, I can't hate on it, not at all. I have to go and ingest it and view it from the point that I'm at now, and then go to the next kind of Bible or the Quran or the Torah and ingest it, because even though I don't all the way agree with it, doesn't mean that I can't believe in it because of all the energy and all the positive things that it's supposed to provide at the end of the day. These different books provide specific ways of how to viewpoint or how to view life and how to properly go through it. If you were to take the values and the lessons of all these books, you would be able to live true and proper enlightenment, but they keep you separate. So I don't disagree, but I like to have disagreeable rhetoric around it.
Good. I was gonna say that is in your arsenal. It is imperative to have opposing opinions to your own, because you'll never be able to defeat someone who has that opinion if you don't understand it. One of my favorites is the bell curve philosophy by Douglas Murray, or is it Charles Murray? I think it's Charles Murray. I read the bell curve because of a podcast that I had heard, and the philosophy on how they believe us as Black people to be less intelligent, based on genetics, obviously not environments, because they didn't do that. Like that whole philosophy allowed for me to take from people who came to me with that philosophy in mind. When they try to start, you want to be able to take that opposing opinion and crumble it to pieces first before you attack their actual knowledge base.
Right.
I was going to say, having some opposing opinions are important in the arsenal. Also, if religion or that realm is something that you like to dabble in, I would suggest taking a look at the Medunetter and the opening of the way.
Yeah.
The Medunetter is it's Medunetter's hieroglyphics. The Greek word for Medunetter is hieroglyphics, and it teaches you how to understand the Kemetic belief system. But the opening of the way,
I'm actually getting into that. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I was getting into reading. There's a couple of groups that go into like more kinetic philosophy. And like I said, I have this big old fat book of like the principles of Mayat, and it goes into like so many teachings. And so, I'm almost definitely on that little path right there.
Well, then that's good. That's good. Then I would suggest, since you are at that doorway, the opening of the way, and what that book is going to do for you is it's going to teach you what the science of spirituality is. It is the physical science. You know, the first few chapters is going to tell you that in order to achieve enlightenment, your automaton, your ba, and your ka must all come together as one. And it will break down how scientifically, and by science, obviously, I don't mean with a beaker, I mean scientifically, tactically, with your hands, you achieve that. Not how you spiritually pray and hope that it'll come, but how you physically make that step by doing, by really attacking that philosophy. It really helps you battle the spiritual playground, because one of the things that I had come to find while going through my studies was that you get like pulled a little bit. Spirituality can pull you. Someone, you know, like you can, when you're going through the Nation of Islam, right? And you're going through their studies, you might get off the road and take a pit stop and stay there and become a card-carrying member, because you know just inherently it has the ability to pull you. So have a spiritual grounding center. That way, when you go through, you are not pulled by what sounds like a greener pasture. You're pulled by what could be potentially something good for you. Because often we see something, we think greener pastures, but you go there and you realize you got to do a certain number of prayers every day or some shit like that. You know what I mean? So
put some money in the basket and everything else.
I most definitely do. Like I said, for you to achieve certain things, and since all three of these books are quote unquote and black plagiarism insert from like the Kemetic text and things of that nature, you know, it's all from, you know, their, you know, way of living. And so when you break down the Meru Neter, but I only know Neter as like being God or life in a sense, or nature's nature. Yes. So I don't know Meru, but it says it in the book.
Yes,
so,
that's right.
Know,
it's the science of nature.
See, so for me,
I have to go back and watch this just so I can listen, just so I can write down all the. I started writing stuff down, but I don't write fast enough, and I'm trying to listen too much. So I'm gonna have to listen to this a few times. Get the book list from Trey and Nico.
Oh, what about have you heard of the Holy Tablets by Malachi Z. York?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm tapping into that, but my MacBook is fried at the moment, so I can't really read it, and I'm so mad. I'm so pissed. I don't have a physical copy because, you know, if I did, I wouldn't say that online. So
right now, I'm in the book of Khalid Muhammad. Right now, written by Malik Zulu Shabazz Esquire, and I loved that man before. All right, he is literally a literal hero of mine to the utmost, to the, you know, umpteenth, everything that he has done to be a Black nationalist leader who went to Africa to fight for freedom, who has put his body on the line in so many ways. Like I'm deep in that right now, but I just picked up so it's that and the Sada Shakur, the biography, the autobiography of Sada Shakur. I just have never gone into her, like her understanding at all. I never really, for some reason, I just didn't find the want to go that far in. I had other Black women that I was inspired by, but something just poked me and was like, hey, when you get this Khaled book, you need to get a Sada too. So I just got that. I'm really excited for that one. But man, this Khaled book, I'm telling you right now, man, I'm telling you right now, these people of the past who think that they have spoken for our people, this man marched against the physical KKK. This man fought with Idi Amin. This man was a literal freedom fighter, a dignitary, an orator, a master teacher. He earned all those titles. The Farrakhan being as big as he is because Khaled helped build back the nation after after WD Muhammad destroyed it. So like that's blowing my mind right now. That's where I'm in. That's the book I'm in right now, among the other 8 books that I'm also reading on the back end.
Yeah, what's funny about Assata Shakur is like from the way I was introduced to Assata Shakur was through like the white conservative, like cop killer, all these like pejorative type things, and then you just like start reading into the story. It's like, oh wait, so like they might have been set up and all this shit, like you start looking into it a little bit more, and it's like, oh goddamn, man, like this is like they really try to do a number on the mind, don't they, with all this stuff where it's like it's like a bad movie where where like these you see Knives Out, that movie that came out where it's like that, like it's like, oh, this one's the killer, no, this one's the killer, no, this, like they keep switching up on you so you don't know who the fucking good guys are. It's like it's really messed up, man. There's some plot twisted ass motherfuckers, man.
Alphabet Boys are fucking scandalous, man. But the first few chapters in this book, spoiler alert to anyone who plans on getting it, they're talking about what happened after Elijah Muhammad's passing, after he died. And if you don't know much about the nation before then, they were building an economic base for Black people. They had more done for the Black community than had been happening for a long time, and money was being moved for us. And then when Elijah passed and W.D. Muhammad was installed, a lot believed that the FBI put him in place, that the Alphabet Boys put him in there, because everything about the nation went from we're not going to preach Black power or this, we're going to turn it into the traditional Islamic doctrine. We're going to they close down all of the economic centers that Elijah had built and that Farrakhan had helped uplift. They made sure all of these things were destroyed before anyone ever came back up in the nation. People were talking about how speakers and leaders in the nation were sick and doing drugs, and they were lost like sheep. Like, it's all like them Alphabet Boys will get deep in you. They penetrated us. Trying to take us out, trying to take our movement and destroy it. They implanted people.
Meaning you personally, like your stuff that you saw. Yeah. You saw this stuff firsthand.
Yes. The FBI will they will put so many different types of actors in your crowd that you can run from one who is the obvious bad actor into the arms of another.
Damn.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It's wild. It's wild.
Well, gentlemen,
you don't need all those books and more if you're going to help people out these streets, man. I'm telling you.
Gentlemen, this has been an amazing conversation, and I really have enjoyed hearing your perspective, man. That is just truth laid out in front of us. We could probably go all night. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we probably ought to cut it pretty soon. But we certainly should have you back on sometime, man. Trey, you have been just amazing. I really enjoy your work, and you're just down the road from Adam in Arizona. Y'all should hook up sometime. Contact me shortly, and I'll get you scheduled to talk to him on Adam versus the Man as well. But yeah, if you haven't followed Adam's work, you should, if for no other reason, but he's another activist out there who is absolutely doing good work, and he would be a good ally for you as well. So I just checked to make sure all of Trey's links are in the description. If you want to look him up, he's got a YouTube channel. That's where the video that you and I were talking about today, where you actually mentioned reading and then also listening to the bell curve and all that. There's a lot of good stuff there, and also there's some other links there too, Twitter and websites and things like that. So y'all go check
check Trey out. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we let you go?
Yeah, I really want people to check out the CBNP, the Colorado Black Networking Project. Me,
that's in there too. Yeah,
we created this project. I plan to. It is my goal that this is not relegated to Colorado. That we open up and become a nationwide operating network. But obviously, I'm here in Colorado, so I want to get people who are here to move with me, and then people online as well. But that's the one thing we've been able to maintain in this whole thing is something for us. So people could check that out. Respect to everybody who I've walked with and everybody who who hates me and who loves me for whatever reasons. All blessings to the Most High, man. This could have been done without her. She's made this possible. You know what I'm saying? She even blessed me with a baby girl. You know what I'm saying? Got a baby girl on the way. We about to eat this pink cupcake in these streets. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Yeah, man. Congratulations again on your princess on the way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have a little mini Hoteptress in these streets.
That's right.
Tearing these niggas down.
Like Chad said, man, we're gonna breed them out of existence.
I'm gonna have to homeschool. They're gonna kick her out of school. My dad said Christopher Columbus was black.
I faced that shit.
So my kid, I haven't like actually taught them like any Khalid Muhammad or anything like that, but they know how to operate behind enemy lines. Like they know how to they're in there, but then they're like texting me or they're emailing me like, look at this shit that they're saying in school, stuff like that and everything like that. So it's not necessarily that they'll get kicked out. If they know how to operate, behind enemy lines, they'll be all right. But yeah, homeschool. I if I had it to do all over again, that is for sure what we would have done. But I came to a lot of this stuff after we were already in deep, and so extraction was a little tough. But anyway, we very much appreciate you, and we wish you all the best. And I hope I got to talk to you about some stuff with painting and stuff like that, because there's some stuff from an artistic perspective that I want to turn you on to that I think you might be able to. It's actually kind of a cool technique that I think you could take from like what because you're talking about like painting like in houses and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So like there's some other stuff that you can do. I'm gonna turn you on to some stuff that I just found out about that is like a really cool technique that's yeah, after this. That's right. So
I'm hungry.
We appreciate everybody. Yes, I am too. I got my food sitting right here. No, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody coming in. Reminder, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Go to the Patreon, go to Trey's links and support him and his work there too. We're gonna get on libretv.co. We're gonna get that uploaded tonight and hopefully have it live early tomorrow. And 2 shares to speed the spread. You know the deal. We really appreciate everyone for coming out, and obviously mostly we appreciate Trey for gracing us with his presence and his story. And we remind you all to, as always, stay free, my friends.